Welcome to the Oh So Spurs podcast. Tottenham have just beaten Burnley 3-0, and alongside a licensed coach, JJ, we're going to dissect the game from a tactical perspective. What do we notice from the lineup, the structure, and Spurs' approach in general? How are you, JJ? You well?
Yeah, doing well. 3-0 victory on day one of the season, at the very least. Go to bed tonight happy.
Exactly. So, shall we start with the lineups when they came out? We were in the concourse together at the stadium, and I said, I'm not confident in this setup. And you went, what do you mean? It's a very standard setup. Do you want to talk us through what you saw? Probably most what I saw was, Johnson left wing and Bergvall and Gray. And I assumed Gray was maybe playing in a six role on his own. But do you want to talk us through the structure of the setup initially?
Yeah, I don't think there are any surprises. I think Thomas Frank showed that he's not necessarily going to use this team against better or higher opposition, but he's using it as an opportunity to give minutes to players, to bring players on, and he's got confidence, and he's also therefore giving that confidence to players. So he played a very young midfield three, choosing to go with, we would argue, we've got our first choice back five out there, and then after that he's put in Gray in at the six, but playing alongside Bergvall and Sarr. And I thought they'd set up in a version of the double pivot where effectively Gray's the six. I thought Bergvall actually would play the 8 and then Sarr would sit further forward, and he would be, as I've said before with you, Jim, he'd be the trigger for the high press if we were going to do any of that kind of stuff. They did rotate, they did move around, but that is a really young, really inexperienced midfield, or at the very least, perhaps I've played a lot of minutes, but that's what, two 19-year-olds and a 22-year-old, something like that. That's that's by no means the most experienced midfield we could have put out there, with players like Bentancur and Palhinha sitting on the bench. So for me, it was something he decided to do because he wanted legs. He wanted energy. He knows how much was given with only a couple of days in between the Super Cup and today in midweek. And also, I think part of the rationale is giving confidence to these young players, saying, I believe in you. You're going to go out there and you're going to be able to play minutes against this kind of team who we are expecting to sit back effectively and probably counterattack. So that's the legs idea. Brennan Johnson on the left-hand side, he's already tipped his hat at Thomas Frank that he will play him there this season. I don't think he's as effective there as he is on the right-hand side, but he did okay. I know Brennan Johnson is Marmite to Tottenham Hotspur fans, but he does what he does. He scores goals, but even people around me, they gave him so much stick all game long, which is, it's incredible. I can't really get my head around it, but poor Brennan, all he does is score loads and loads of goals. Terrible. What a terrible fella.
Yeah. It was one of those where, similar set of me, it was from minute one, look at Johnson's positioning. He should be wider. He should be touching the line. Why is he not doing that? And it was just constant. It was almost like directed analysis off the bat of what can I find that he's not doing right. And he didn't have the best 50 minutes initially in the game, but he does exactly what he always does. As soon as everyone starts getting vocal about him not doing enough, not running at players, missing an opportunity to make a run, he goes and brings out a brilliant goal. And goals are quite important in football, so we shouldn't discount them completely. But looking back at some of the individual players and the setup then, I did feel like Spurs found themselves in situations where they were exposed to a counter-attack. So Burnley, they executed on their own plan as much as we ultimately did now as winning 3-0. Did you notice anything in particular about us going forward and how we handled those counters in particular?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things. The first couple are definitely all about us. So again, we've said it and we've seen it again. We are not yet there in terms of how we are going to progress the football. And there were times after a really fast start, I think we had a chance very, very early on. Bergvall wins us a corner, really great bit of interplay. So we come out in the traps really fast. We then score an early enough goal to feel pretty comfortable and pretty confident. And then after that, we really dropped off. We showed that we didn't have the answers to how we were going to move the ball through midfield. We also got a bit sloppy. Both Romero and Porro were guilty of giving the ball away quite a lot. And that just allowed Burnley to grow into the game. And from there on, it was fairly even for the rest of the first half. And Burnley did put us under pressure. There was one particular time right at the end of the half where I think Romero gives the ball away straight down the middle in midfield because, again, we're not showing for it in midfield. Players are not coming in to get the ball and to move it up the pitch. He's tried to force it. They've picked it. They've counterattacked and they've had a great chance at goal. Again, that doesn't happen if you do the things you need to do to progress the ball better. So if we're playing better, chances are a team like Burnley doesn't get that opportunity. But again, you know that Burnley are going to play that way against you, and therefore you've got to minimise that. You've got to be a little bit sure in possession. So it's more what we did on the ball costing us, and a few times when Gray got himself advanced, he was really high up. Berrival is now playing furthest player forward, and then Burnley turn the ball over because we don't hold it and they go running back at us. We've seen this film. We've seen it happen to us. It's a bit disappointing that, with all the credit that we must give to the organisational setup that Frank and his team have put in, that is still happening at this moment in time. But they will improve. This will change. And again, you feel like if we were playing not the first choice 11, but maybe some more senior players in there, maybe that stuff isn't happening. Yeah, maybe they can, against a Burnley, maybe that stuff wouldn't happen. So these are the areas that the young players really need to kind of iron out and make sure that they're not doing. And then there were times where we were transitioned and, Mickey van der Ven does his thing, right? He comes in and does his thing. And there's an awareness of that. We do play a high line at times, and we've got players that can get back and can recover. So part of it is risk that you take, and the managers reference that, and then part of that is just down to us being a little bit better in possession of.
And like you have to give these young players the opportunities to learn and grow, right? They're not the finished article, and that's absolutely fine. We've bought a lot of these players because of what the finished article will look like, and that is worth that investment in time, and you have to go through those mistakes. There's also, like you said, there's just a bit of, I think, moments of when we say sloppy and mistakes, there's just not familiar with each other yet. I haven't spent ample minutes together on the same field in a competitive scenario to know each other's runs well, to know each other's passes well, to know each other's movements, all these things. I'm sure Frank has a vision of how he wants his 28-man squad to operate with one another. Now, teaching 28 human beings how to do that effectively in front of 60,000 people is a different task in itself. And we've discussed this before, I think, off air. It's great when you see these videos of Frank just needs to do this to fix it. Well, he's to install that into a human being's head, get them to remember it in a high pressure scenario, and get their teammates to also execute on their piece in that situation as well, all in unison together. Sometimes it's a little bit more complex. So another attacking player that deserves a lot of credit today, on top of Mohamed Kudus, who we will go over in a bit more detail, I think we have to talk about our Brazilian number 9, who was really strong today. He had 2 phenomenal finishes. Do you feel he's doing enough to warrant contending for a starting spot?
For him to come out and to play like that today, he continued the physicality. His touch looks really nice and neat. He's bringing players into the game. He's still getting in and about it. So physically, he looks fit and he looks hungry. Very, very impressive. And absolutely, at this moment in time, you wouldn't swap Richarlison out of the starting lineup, even if Solanke's completely fit, because he's on fire. He's playing really, really well. So the only reason you would not drop him, but you'd rotate him. You'd give him rest, but you wouldn't take him out of the starting lineup. He absolutely deserves all the credit that comes his way after these 2 performances. And long may it continue. Great goals, good movement, good hold-up play, everything you could want from a single number 9 in that system.
Another brilliant player in the attacking lineup was Mohamed Kudus. Beautiful bit of finesse with that touch he had on the byline. Can you tell us a bit more about his game? What do you notice? What's he adding to the dynamic of Spurs versus what we had last season?
He's definitely levelled us up on that right-hand side, and this is not a criticism of who normally plays on that right-hand side, but he is bringing hold-up play, he's bringing dynamism, energy, he's taking his man on, and he's threatening the opposition at all times. So the first goal actually comes from a really good bit of play by Papsar, who gets in and intercepts the ball nice and high up the pitch. And then the threat of Kudus has them trying to clear the ball quickly. So they're just trying to get rid of it. They're not really trying to play out or think about what they do, because he's been taking them on. He's been pressing really heavily as well. And then he did exactly the thing that I've been asking of him, which is to give that end product, to have that end product. And he's provided 2 good balls two decent balls into dangerous areas. They weren't pinpoint picking people out. Richarlison has still had to move or get himself, or he's actually done really well. He's moved into the defensive line and then stepped back out on both occasions. But Kudus has been the one who's got the ball, he's taken his man on, and he's been willing to put the ball into a good area. And that is exactly what we want to see. If we continue to see that throughout the course of the season, he is going to be an absolute phenomenon for us. He's going to be brilliant. That level of threat from the right-hand side, if we can match that up on the other side, we will be a very dangerous team.
You mentioned it before. The only thing kind of keeping him from that Real Madrid level kind of player is it's just the end product. And if he gets that and he's at an age where he still could, then we have got one hell of a player on our hands, which is a fantastic position to be in as Spurs. And I don't know if anyone didn't see his interview after the game. I'd watch it. He's a very interesting character, very humble, very switched on. So yeah, that's a good watch. So just finishing off then, JJ, how would you kind of summarise the performance? And as a team of coaches, what will they be doing, do you think, now between now and Manchester City? And will they take lessons from that game that will be brought into the away game at the Etihad, or would it be treated completely differently as a different set of opposition?
No, there's definitely going to be a lot of stuff they're going to take out of that game, and there's going to be the general setups and frameworks that they want to have in place for the entirety of the season. It's going to be a different starting lineup, in my opinion, for the Man City game. We are going to set ourselves out in a different way. I think we'll see it a lot closer to the PSG game and the way we played that than the way we played today against Burnley. But there's plenty that the coaching staff are going to be going away and looking at. I definitely think we need to work on our bravery in midfield, getting on the ball. We didn't really show a great deal of, the rotations in the high and wide areas either. That needs to improve. But there's a lot to be said for the defensive rigidity and the setup for the most part, how good we are from set pieces, both attacking and defensively. And again, worth giving Richarlison a shout for a couple of good clearances inside his own box. So all of those things are the bits that the coaching staff are going to take with them. They're definitely going to be working on them. But yes, there's going to be a different tactical setup and different personnel going into the Man City game, which is going to be a very, very different ask for us.
Well, we've won 2 of our last 3 games against Manchester City, and we have a good history against them. So let's see. Do you think it will be more of a reminiscence to what we saw against PSG then at City? The same kind of setup, you'd expect similar lineup, or would you expect there to be any particular variances there based on what we saw against Burnley?
I think definitely closer to the tactical setup that we saw against PSG. But I wouldn't mind seeing maybe somebody coming in the door in the meantime who can help us out, or potentially sign someone from Man City so that they get that a little bit weaker, although apparently he wouldn't play anyway because he's injured. But yeah, a signing would be nice, but yeah, much closer to PSG than what we saw today.
Perfect. Well, thanks very much, JJ. Looking forward to discussing the City game for good reasons, hopefully, after we have 3 points from the Etihad and up the Spurs.
Come on, Tom.